You've seen the headlines. China's EV competition is so fierce that Volkswagen cannot keep up. China's newest EV entry, Xiaomi, is now worth almost as much as GM and Ford. BYD, a Chinese car company, is now selling as many cars as Tesla, and cars in general over here in Australia. We buy more cars now from China than we do from Korea. This is a stunning turn of events from a country which was making this just 10 years ago. But this was no accident. You see, China is hoping to use electric cars to win the 21st century game of geopolitics, where neoliberalism is out and technonationalism is the new global paradigm. Oil is of less importance, and all eyes are on lithium, cobalt, and other rare earths. And electric cars are right at the center of this once in 100 years energy shift. Let's first talk about technonationalism. You see, in this new world, a country's technological self-sufficiency and ability to deny geopolitical competitors access has replaced the more laissez-faire global neoliberalism that we're familiar with. In this increasingly closed-off and less globalized world, a country's national security and economic prosperity are ever more dependent on its ability to safeguard its technological capabilities, which in turn are becoming ever more centrally planned. We've seen this play out in the computer microprocessor industry already in the trade wars between China and the West, where the major powers have realized that technological advantage in this area gives you a huge geopolitical advantage, both from a national security point of view, but also economically. And thus we're seeing America, Europe, and China attempt to secure their microprocessor supply chains and capabilities, whilst attempting to deny it to their competitors. Earlier this year, we saw America touting 11 billion USD investment into semiconductor research and development, and this comes after the landmark Chips and Science Act of 2022, which saw $52.7 billion being invested into semiconductor research and subsidies. This is now a mostly taxpayer-funded industry that is designed to ensure that America is self-sufficient and doesn't need to rely particularly on China and the increasingly dangerous-looking Taiwan for the black gold of the modern world. And all of this comes at the same time as Biden's Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which is essentially a protectionist policy to protect and boost American technological industries in this deglobalizing world. Meanwhile, China has invested reportedly 291 billion USD into becoming self-reliant in this chip production industry between 2021 and 2022 alone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is techno-nationalism, a neo-mercantile-like economic ideology that is very different from the world of globalism and neoliberalism that we've become accustomed to. China's efforts in this area have been less than successful. It hasn't exactly lost this race, but the challenge of competing against American hegemony has been, well, more difficult than they expected. But there is another key industry that China has been far more successful in pursuing: electric cars and battery production in general. Unlike microprocessors or even internal combustion engines, electric cars are incredibly simple. An internal combustion engine typically, for example, has about 2,000 components, whereas an EV drivetrain only has about 20 moving parts. The barrier to entry is incredibly low, and with electric cars expected to reach 80% market share by 2050, it is one of the key industries Xi Jinping identified in his 2025 Made in China initiative, a state-led protectionist policy designed to make China more self-sufficient. This low barrier to entry isn't the only thing that's helping and motivating China in making EVs. As of 2021, China's dependency on oil imports was at 72%. This is compared to America, who only imported 25% of its oil in the same year. It is in China's national interest to move away from this dependency as soon as possible. Meanwhile, China is utterly dominating the rare earths industry. Its state-owned industries control over 80% of global extraction and processing. These are the building blocks of batteries. This is one of the main reasons why China has such a huge presence in Africa and South America right now. 80% of the Congo's cobalt, for example, is owned by Chinese companies. Beijing also controls 70% of global lithium supply and even 75% of permanent magnets, which are essential in making electric motors. By prioritizing these materials and refinement capabilities to its own manufacturers, by hoarding the building blocks of batteries, China essentially has the ability to push everyone out of the market. VW CEO only said last year, "Today we are 100% dependent on China when it comes to battery production." Their stranglehold is strong. Even in 2010, China stopped exporting these minerals and materials to the electronics manufacturing juggernaut Japan after a kerfuffle over some disputed islands. In 2019, at the start of the America-China trade war, Xi Jinping threatened to cut America off from rare earths. And let's remember, folks, we are in a peacetime environment. As with what China's done in other industries, they have acquired the key technology and know-how of electric cars from foreign companies. Their government, as a techno-nationalist power, have funneled billions and billions of dollars into this industry to achieve huge production capacity and undercut foreign for-profit manufacturers. And with massive government subsidies, China is on the trajectory for total electric car domination. And in combination with the reorientation of the global supply chains towards Chinese-controlled rare earths rather than oil, and protectionist policies all around, we are at a historical tipping point. So essentially, the more EVs there are in the world, the greater the reliance on batteries, and the more the world relies on batteries, the more the world will depend on China, and the more geopolitical power China will have. Thanks for listening.